Hello, I can't see any party. Hi. Okay, at the end I made it. First of all, welcome you all to the blockchain talks of Aydın University of Istanbul. Today's guest is Mrs. Galia Wessler. She is the CEO and co-founder of Plazo Software Engineering. But I would like to say a few words about Galia. Galia is, first of all, very appreciated technological lady, I would say, in the future technological or in the blockchain industry. She is one of the pioneers. And today she will talk to us. She will share her valuable ideas about identity on the blockchain and the usage of SSI in a time of a pandemic. Galia, first of all, thank you very much for participating in the webinar, and we are all ready to listen to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for inviting me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very well.
Right.
We see you also, your beauty very well. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I will start. I'm wondering if it's okay if I share my screen.
Sure, we are ready.
Awesome. And another question, do we have people joining or should we wait a little bit? I cannot see the participants.
No, we can see. It's okay.
Perfect.
So we are ready to listen to you.
Perfect. So let me share my screen. 1 second. And also we are recording, which is great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. And now, do you see it in a big screen size view?
Yeah. Mission statement.
Perfect. Awesome. So thank you very much for inviting me today. My name is Galia Wessler. It is a pleasure to be here. I have to say it's a little bit disappointing that we're still in a pandemic and I can't come physically to Turkey because I love Turkey. And I particularly love the people and I love the weather. And I wish that I will be standing, instead of in Berlin, I will be standing where you guys are sitting or standing. And actually, Aaron and I met because we were both as part of the big conference in Estonia, and we're able to collaborate together and also present about very important topics and about cutting edge technology. And today, I'm going to talk to you about blockchain. Now, because I'm not there physically with you, and I don't know if people can raise their hands and if somehow we can make it, Aaron, maybe you can help me make it interactive, but sure. I wanted to ask some questions. And I don't know if people can raise their hands and tell me, have you heard about blockchain? Are you studying about blockchain?
I can say they are both. They are studying blockchain and many of them knows blockchain.
Amazing. Now, what is sort of the topics that are being covered in blockchain? Because a lot of the time when I talk about blockchain, some people say, Bitcoin. But it is not just Bitcoin, right? Right. We're talking about many, many other things other than cryptocurrencies. So I don't know if I should give a background about blockchain, but if you do know a little bit about blockchain, you would know that the philosophy behind blockchain is giving the power to the people. The power to the people to be able to own their digital assets. And digital assets could be money, which is cryptocurrency, and it could be other very interesting things, which we're going to talk about today, which is identity. Now let's step back a little bit and think about identity. What is identity? My identity right now, because I'm in Germany, is that I have a visa to be here. I also have an identity of Canada. My companies are incorporated in Canada and I was born in Canada. And I have, for example, my driver's license in Canada. But let me ask you the question. Even though you have a passport, a driver's license, a visa to stay in a country, do you really think that you are the owner of that data assets called identity? The answer to that is most probably not. You are not the owner of your data. You're not the owner of your identity. And let me give you a little small example. If, for example, I'm driving a car and I'm in Germany, I'm in Canada, and a police officer decides that I disobeyed a sign, but maybe I did, maybe I didn't. It is up to him to decide to give me a fine and even take my driver's license away. Now, if I truly owned the driver's license, then I would be able to perhaps pay the fine or attend a hearing and get back my driver's license, right? Or get back my passport. Let's say, for example, I tore my passport by accident. I had a little tear. The law says that actually these digital assets as identities does not belong to you. It belongs to the government. And so I have to ask for the government, please issue a new driver's license, please issue a new passport. And the government can decide, maybe we'll give it to you, maybe we won't. Now here starts the problem. Everybody should ask themselves, why are we not the owners of this data? And the reason is because the way the world has been operating, especially since the era of the internet for a few decades, is that we use central authorities. So what is a good example of a central authority? Errol, help me here. Who's a central authority?
Governments.
Governments, exactly. What about our money? Do we own our money?
No.
We don't know. And how do we find out we don't even know our money? Do you remember what happened in 2007? 7, right? 7,
yeah.
9? Yeah. Financial crisis? What happened? This concept of using such an amazing technology such as blockchain came to life. And that's because of the realization that we don't own our money. And today we also should know we don't own our identity. So there must be a way to help these central authorities, such as the government, such as the banks, to be able to help us manage our own assets. My identity as a Canadian and my identity as a resident of Germany belongs to me. And today I want to talk to you about a very good use case that is close to my heart, which talks about my identity as a person that goes through a health procedures. So we said at the beginning, oh man, this is still a pandemic and I cannot see you in person. Now, if I could see you in person, let's imagine there would be a conference in the university, right? And there will be a gate for me to enter into the conference. In today's world, you're gonna have to check me. You're gonna have to scan me or give me a test to see if I'm healthy, if I don't have some weird variant and I can infect everybody, right? You also would want to know if I'm vaccinated. But the issue with that is that you're asking me to give you personal identity information about my health status. And here comes the story of self-sovereign identity. Self-sovereign identity allows for people to identify themselves and verify their identity without disclosing personal information that is not needed. And the reason why we decided, or we have been using SSI for the past 2 years in different projects, and today we finished doing a few projects in this area of health. And the reason why we came with this idea is because we thought about this pandemic and other pandemics as well. How do we create free movement of people between places without jeopardizing their privacy? Now, what is the issue that we see today? Why do we even need security? Why do we need self-sovereign identity when we are dealing with identifying whether or not we're sick or not? The reason why we need it right now is because everybody now has to prove something about their health. You cannot leave your country, you cannot leave your region, you cannot even go to a restaurant. I'm not sure about the regulation right now in Turkey, but I can tell you that in Germany, everywhere that you go, you must be either tested or vaccinated or have overcome this disease and you have antibodies. Never mind that the process is so difficult and it takes so long. The problem with this process is that every time, again and again, you have to prove who you are and your health status. And with that comes a risk of exposing unrelevant information that could be hacked. And in today's world, we belong to 2 sets of groups, right? We as companies, we as people, the one group who was hacked and the other group who's going to be hacked. And it's just a matter of time. So you better pay attention to what we can do about that. And this is, by the way, for organizations and for people at the same time. I just want to share with you some news that maybe you've heard. There's been a cyber attack on Germany. Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
There's been a cyber attack on like 800 financial institutions. Yesterday, I tried to log into N26 and nothing worked. Needless to say, this is all private information, financial information that is hacked. Another example I will tell you that with all these different test centers that are happening, also Germany, but around the world, these test centers have been hacked. Because if you look at the technology that they use for you to go through a test center and do a COVID test, you have to log, you don't even log in, you get a QR code, you scan the QR code, which essentially it's a web URL. You go into that web form and you input information, which I am certain is not encrypted. You enter really sensitive information, and guess what? This information has been hacked. Tens of thousands of users, private information about the fact that they got tested, their test results, where they live, their phone number, all of these identities have been hacked. Now, you may ask, well, okay, it's been hacked. Yeah, but how will this bother me? It bothers you because now that we know that the banks have been hacked, or maybe not hacked, maybe they've been slowed down and some of the information was hacked. Now combine banking information with personal information. You can do many, many things with that data, which is extremely, it's a very worrying fact that all of us should be aware of. So when we go back to providing health information, we should ask these organizations and ask ourselves, what can we do to prevent from bringing all this private information to these central databases? And here's the point of blockchain, right? One of the ideas and the fundamentals of blockchain is how do we do things in a decentralized way? Why would you need to decentralize your architecture? Why do you even want to think about that? There's two reasons, right? The reason number one, well, there's a few reasons, but the reason number one is because you don't want to give the power and the control to a central authority, for example, the banks. For example, what happened with the financial crisis. For example, what happened yesterday and the day before yesterday where they got hacked. The problem is that these central authorities, they hold all the data in their servers and they're in charge of securing that data. And by the way, they also own that data, right? The problem with that is that you give them too much power. I know they want the power, but actually too much power can harm you. So how do we help these organizations a little bit disseminate the power and help them get the responsibility of the power in collaboration with other organizations? That's number one. Number two is when you give these organizations so much power that can be hacked, you should also check them, which is why audit is a very, very good representative of why blockchain is very good characteristics of blockchain, why it is so good for us. And why is it so good for these organizations? Because if you can audit these organizations, you could say, you know, I've audited you, and from compliance perspective, from security perspective, from GDPR perspective, I don't think you adhere to the rules. And me, as the little individual, would like to know that my data is securely stored. I would like to also know, what are you doing with my data? So if, for example, I went to a test center and I gave them all of my information, I actually want to know, besides presenting these like cookies on the website, what are you doing with my data? And I'll tell you something else. I also would like to control to whom this data is being passed on to. Because when I go to a testing center, when I go to a vaccination center, I have to test myself, I got to get the vaccine, but then all I get is a piece of paper. And like I said, that piece of paper doesn't belong to me, because it's enough to say, you know what, we actually don't recognize this Pfizer, this Pfizer vaccination that you got. And we think that there's a mistake in this piece of paper. Someone wrote Gala instead of Gala, a very common mistake. And all of a sudden it disappears. Now I'm gonna give you another example. I'm gonna jump from examples. You are students. We are in a university right now. What happens if, let's say, 10 years go by and you move to a new country such as Germany, and in order to get a visa, you have to prove that you have done your computer science degree or your MBA degree or PhD. Since you don't own that piece of certificate, right? And the reason why you don't own it is because you get a copy of it and you're going to show it to the German government. The German government is going to say, you know, we don't believe you. They're going to go and check in a central database, by the way, that will check to see if this university in fact issued issues a certificate, and then they also have to check with the university itself that they've issued it to you. As you can see, it's quite long and quite tedious process. Now imagine, for some reason, I'm sure it happens, the university lost your record. Oh my God, I studied 4 years engineering. I cannot imagine losing my degree. What will happen now? I have to repeat my degree? I cannot do this. So we have to help the university. So how about we help them by creating a system that allows for one side to be the issuer. For example, I'm a university and I issue certificates and degrees. And on the other side, there will be a verifier. For example, there will be a verifier such as the German government. They will verify. And on the other side, there will be a holder. A holder would be me as a user. I'm going to hold an app. It's going to have a digital wallet. And I'm going to ask one time, not 10,000 times, one time, hello, university. Do you remember where I studied in 2002 or 3, or I don't even remember? Do you remember that? Do you remember that my score was 80? And do you remember that these were my topics? Do you remember my final exams? Give me, please, my certificate and let me hold the proof, not the certificate, the proof of my certificate on my wallet, encrypted on my phone. And now that I want to go and for example, ask for the German government to give me a blue card based on my degree, they're going to verify it with the proof that I got directly from the source. So the source would be the organization that is giving me this certificate. So I'm going to make a claim and I'm going to hold these credentials inside my digital wallet. And the proof to that will be on the blockchain. So that doesn't matter if the university ceased to exist, it would say that in a certain date, in a certain time, Galia Wessler got her degree in 2001, and she got it as a software engineer. Now, I'll tell you something even more than that. If you think about COVID, if you think about the architecture of where we want to be, and I'll show you another, then I'll show you how it works. If you think about the world of today, we will not be able to cross borders anymore. We're going to have to go through this verification. We're going to have to go through this issuance again and again and again and again. So I am here in Berlin pleading you, please automate these systems and please protect our data, because it's going to take this government and these universities and these companies and all of these people involved in organization so much time. Now, you've already lost lots of money during the pandemic. So how about you think about things a little bit differently? How about we think about things in a bit more streamlined manner? How about we think about as a user, let's change our mindset. The user is the owner of their data. Remember the philosophy of blockchain? We are the owners of data. It belongs to us, does not belong to the organizations. And we should be in charge of what belongs to us. So imagine you now say, I'm the owner of my data, of my credentials, and I decided to go to university. I decided to go to a testing center. I decided to get vaccinated. It is me who made the decision. Nobody imposed it on me. I decided. Now, if I decided to do so, I would like to get the ultimate proof that I've done it in a legit manner. And I would like the organization that gave it to me to give me, I would like to make a claim and to get the credentials. And the way I hold these credentials is I then decide to go, for example, to an event, to a restaurant, or to get a visa. And then I will show my phone. For example, I can hold these credentials in a QR code, and I can tap my phone into a gate, and it will open the gate. And the gate will be the gate to now attend a soccer game, to now enter a country. And everything that I'm telling you is not a fiction of my imagination. If you've heard about IATA.
Travel.
Yes, sir?
Yeah, we heard IATA. About traveling
Exactly.
agency.
Exactly. And they hold, I think, 180 or 190 different airports around the world, and they've implemented SSI. They've implemented it with Evernym. Evernym are the people who've invented Sovereign. They are doing amazing work, but let me tell you, they also need help. Because Evernym, we can talk about Evernym, but Evernym is another, I would say, business model. And right now it's a bit difficult for them to scale. They're really, really focused on airports, and airports really, really need it. But our focus as Go Health Technologies and Plazas is to give this type of solution the same standard approach, the same SSI, the same cryptography, the same methods, is to give this to different types of organization, not necessarily to airports, because it does require huge amount of collaboration. But I'm going to talk about a little bit what they do with airports, and we have this graph here. There is a thing, or there's starting to be a thing called the Travel Pass app.
Yeah.
They've implemented this with British Airways, and I believe with Emirates and a bunch of the big ones. So they're focusing on the big ones, right?
Yeah.
The big airlines, they really have to open their economy. We named this project Go. It's from the phrase, let's get the economy going. And how are they going to open the economy? It started by them, IATA and Evernym. They wanted to be able to allow people to maybe you still have to hold your passport, yeah? But the problem is that this thing here can be easily fraud, right? How do you verify that this is true? So they actually started this project with the SSI to make digital passports. And then the COVID pandemic came along, and they decided to also include in it testing labs. And they're now including it at vaccination center. But the issue with that, because it's an ecosystem and it is blockchain-based and SSI-based, it requires so much collaboration. And so right now they're in a pilot mode when they are slowly adding the airlines. But if you look at this model of what they're doing, they're implementing it exactly in the same way, right? They are issuing the certificates from the labs that somebody has gotten tested. They put the credentials on the person's phone, on the wallet, and the person also connecting it to Thematic. Thematic is the system that IATA is using and developed to also check for the regulations. For example, you have to be tested 72 hours before. Now Canada, finally, Canada said vaccinated people can enter their gates, which I'm really happy about. And a few days ago, what today's date is the 6th, the 4th of July wasn't the rule anymore. Starting from the 5th of July, this rule applied. So IATA connecting it to Thematic can also tell you, based on your plane ticket, what are the rules and regulations that you must adhere to. You store everything on your phone if you were to use the IATA app, and then you're able to enter a border. So if you go back to this diagram here, you can see that with SSI, you're able to issue credentials from a certain issuer, from a certain organization that have issued this certificate based on your claims. For example, I am vaccinated, I am tested, I have a degree, or any other credentials. And then there will be a verifier that will also be able to verify that information. And then you can share that verified information with a gate, with a restaurant, with an event, anything that you need to create movement from point A to point B. And between those points, you will issue the credentials one time, and you will verify it, and then you'll be able to use it again and again and again and again. So if you go back to the problems that we have today, which is the inefficiency, the fact that these big databases can be hacked, and of course they can still be hacked. But you see, if you're increasing the chance of being hacked, it will be because if you have to check with these databases each and every time the whole information about someone, you are risking this traffic of data to be seen and to be hacked by malicious activities. Whether you can do it or you can do this in another way. You could allow the person to verify who they are. One time my vaccination passport has been verified, and I can go with my phone and I can show this verification when, for example, when I enter a restaurant, when I enter an event, and that's it. I don't have to keep on claiming that certificate again and again and again. Now, let's take a pause for a second with regards to health statuses. Let's think about other wild, crazy ideas that we can do with SSI. Now, I know this is non-interactive, I don't know, Errol, if you want to jump in.
No, I'm listening to you.
All
First of
right.
all, because first of all, we have almost similar system adopted with the pandemic in Turkey. We have this, they called it HES code. So when we are entering, they are reading our barcodes, and they can see whether we are vaccinated, whether we had COVID, or we are how do you call it, related to a COVID patient, etc. So it's a very good follow-up story. So it helps a lot to the people, as you mentioned, that this type of data system, to have it in your easiest way on your phone, will help to everyone. At least they stop to lose time, as you mentioned, to check, etc. Therefore, this seminar is also organized, webinar is organized by the Blockchain Academy of Istanbul Aydın University. So they are doing also some, I will say, scientifically search in many cases where also the blockchain could be used. So it's very good that we are listening to you. We are getting more information and more knowledge through your knowledge, how blockchain could be developed in any other sectors, in any other segments.
That's amazing. That's really impressive. And do you know the technical aspects of this implementation? Do you know if they're using self-sovereign identity, or is it DDI type, like QR codes?
No, it is DBR type QR codes, but the system
so they hold just the minimum set. The reason why I'm asking is there has been an issuance of the EU, I don't want to say the wrong part of the EU governance, where they've issued a paper about how to do the, it's called the Green Initiative.
Yeah.
How to do, I think I have a link here. Yeah, the e-health interoperability network to support the EU Digital Green Initiative. And if you read that paper, I don't know if you guys have read it, but if you read it to the details, you will see that they would like to implement blockchain, but they haven't thought about the actual implementation. Now, we have just finished a project with the Canadian government, the University of Toronto, a CANFAR association. I'll talk about the specific use cases, but we also have been talking to the Ministry of Health of France, right? So EU, and now we have other initiatives in Germany. They only do the DDO or DDI type QR code, which means that they access the centralized database of, for example, the vaccination center in Paris, and the doctors physically, manually are doing the vaccination to you or verify that you've been vaccinated. And then they do have the Green Initiative, which is that DDI, DDO type QR code that holds not all the information, just a minimum data set. Now, perhaps it's the same way that you've got implemented it, but the issue with that, so there's very good things. It does adhere to the e-health interoperability guidelines. Mm-hmm. But the issue with that is that instead of spreading that type of data between different databases and making the user as the owner, unfortunately, we are still making the government as the owner. Mm-hmm. and the issuer, obviously they need to be the issuer, but the user doesn't really have a say whether or not they want to share a certain credential and when they want to share it. Which means that, so I'm going to talk about some utopian future. In an utopian future, if I have to go through a border, I would like to be able to go through a border where anonymously I would like to take a test. I honestly believe that people they don't need to give the health information and other type of personal data to anyone. And at the same time, even though I'm anonymous, I would like to be able to pass through the gate because I've done the nasal test or the PCR test, and I have the credential on my phone. And because I've been verified that I'm Galia, for example, and I do have a health insurance, a German health insurance, nobody else can see that information. And that to me, where the implementation right now of the EU Digital Green Initiative and some of the countries that are following that is a bit lacking. Now, talking to the Ministry of Health in France, for example, for them to take on the approach of SSI is something that they would like to do, but they first have, because there's so much pressure, right? EU, everything is moving, right? People, blah, blah, blah. For them, it will happen a little bit later down the line. So I'm just wondering, Errol, if you know whether or not they have implemented SSI, or maybe it's something that they're...
We have, because we are a system called e-government, and under e-government, we have e-pulse, and e-pulse is controlling our health situation. And mostly during the pandemic, we used it. When you enter your own many times you are vaccinated, what is your status, etc. And one of our attendees has written to me, our attendees, Deniz Postacı, she mentioned already that HGS, which is the name of this centralized system, could be decentralized on peer-to-peer on the networks on blockchain. So, I mean, we have the same system, but not in blockchain yet.
I see. So there is an opportunity to implement SSI.
Yeah.
In this system.
Yeah, that's right. Because otherwise we have, as she mentioned also, this system is centralized from the Ministry of Health.
Yeah, exactly my point. Yeah, that's exactly my point. So I think it's a very, very good first steps to be able to implement it, again, based on the EU interoperability guidelines. And there's been like other guidelines in other countries that are taking this initiative. And I think it's a very important initiative. Now, we can continue talking specifically about that, but I also wanted to expand our mind with giving other types of examples about SSI.
Okay.
So let's imagine, and by the way, anybody can be an issuer, anybody can be a verifier, right? So let's imagine, for example, that I would like to give access and authorization when I'm going on my vacation for my neighbor to water my plants in my garage when I'm away, right? It's a very, it's a very realistic use case. I actually do need somebody to water my plants. Anybody in Berlin want to water my plants? And so, for example, I can give my neighbor the permit to access my garage, right? And I can certify them of using my garage to plant my plants, even if it's just between a certain amount of time. So, for example, I'm going to give them a window between 9 to 10 a.m. and between the 15, I'm going to Canada, between the 15 and the 21 of August. Now, how will I issue this certificate to my neighbor? Because I've interviewed my neighbor, I know my neighbor, and I know, for example, I verified his identity, and now I'm giving him the access, and the evidence to that sits on my digital wallet on my phone, right? And as long as I have the garage door or I have the gate, right, has the same software who is able to verify this type of certificate that I issued to my neighbor, my neighbor as a holder, he can always go with his phone to the garage gate inside this digital wonderful ecosystem. And then, which is, the gate, for example, is the verifier, right? It verifies my neighbor's credential. It says, yeah, it's Mr. Smith, and it's the one who lives in the same street, only 52 number instead of 51. And the gate will open between 9 and 10 a.m. in the morning, right? Magical, oh my gosh. Now, the only thing that I verified, by the way, for my neighbor, right? And the certificate that I gave, the fact that I was able to, sorry, my neighbor is the holder, so I'm the one who issued the certificate. My neighbor doesn't have to give me his date of birth, his financial statement. Think about complicated stuff like a loan. Think about complicated stuff like renting a car, right?
Yeah.
All these stuff that we are doing, like testing center, he doesn't need to tell me his marital status, although I know he has a wife and kids, right? He doesn't need to tell me his date of birth, and he doesn't need to tell me, for example, that he had some issue with his credits a few years ago. He doesn't need to tell me all that. I only need to know, for example, that let's say he doesn't have a criminal record, and how long he's been in this neighborhood. Does he own the apartment, right? And is he a resident of Germany, for example? If this is what allows me to issue a certificate to enter my garage between 9 and 10 a.m., then this is all I need as credentials that I will be issuing to my neighbor because I've checked it. And the garage door only needs to know that this information has been issued, and it's only going to verify this minimum data set. So if you go back to what I was mentioning about the French government and other types of government, they are following the minimum data sets. They are putting in this QR code. But the issue is that they are verifying it with a central database. They're not necessarily thinking yet about how to decentralize this whole ecosystem, right? And there's too much dependencies on governments, where we need to help these governments alleviate the dependencies on them.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we're on the 47 minute and we started a little bit late, but I'm just, so maybe there are some questions or.
We are listening to you with great passion, I would say.
All right, so let me, if I have a few more minutes, I'd like to share the use case. Okay. So this is basically the overall ecosystem, and I would like to say that it's you could do SSI not only with, for example, the garage door or the testing, vaccination, and COVID. We actually started to do a project with the different organizations in Canada based on the federal government of Canada initiative, and it has to do with another type of pandemic, right? And I'll talk about it in 2 seconds. This ecosystem that we are building and customizing and doing the different consultations to the different organizations has to do with an overall big view of how can we streamline the operation between a user, somebody that, we have to give our personal data, and an organization that needs that personal data to allow that user to do something. And so we are integrating this solution with a telemedicine system. We build like a dashboard, real-time reporting. They love it, by the way. Oh my gosh. Can I have this report, this report, this report, this report? Now, the good thing about report is that when you use anonymized data, when you're not jeopardizing one's data or one's personal data, you can do amazing reports, and you will not risk the user while doing so, yet you will know everything about the users as a group, as a whole, and also as individuals. So there's a lot of things that you can do when you implement SSI, right? And I talked about the different process, but one process would be, if we take the example of COVID, is you're gonna go even, let's say, university, or let's say an airport, or let's say a vaccination center, let's say an event. We're going to go and do an event, right, Errol? We're going to do a real event. You're going to invite me, Turkey, yay. I'm going to be there physically, and I'm going to go to the gate. And in the gate, you're going to be like, hey, Galia, and it will be an automatic system, right? The system will say, hey, Galia, scan your ID. I want to see your German ID, or I want to see your some sort of an ID, your passport, right? So it's going to scan my information, and it's going to assess and give the proof that I am Galia, right? That I am of a certain age, for example, that I went through vaccination, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to enter, and that I've done a test. It's going to verify it. So it's going to verify the information, and then present a QR code. So let me just talk about the user. To adopt blockchain technology, you don't necessarily have to understand blockchain technology, right? To adopt the internet in 1996, you didn't really have to know HTML. There just had to be companies creating websites using HTML, right? So we need more companies to implement blockchain, to implement SSI, and more organization to adopt SSI. And the user, all they have to do is boop, 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 I'm scanning my face, and bloop, QR code. That's all I have to do. And then I'm gonna go to the university gate, right, to the event, and I'm going to tap my phone, and bam, I just gave my proof that I am healthy. And all the statistical data can be analyzed, can be presented to the authorities, to different organizations. And of course, you can also include telemedicine, for example, if you talk about, and I'll talk about this use case, right? So the reason why we needed telemedicine is because the government of Canada, in many, many countries, there is a pandemic called HIV. Yeah. And it's even more serious than COVID. And the reason why it's serious is because the spread is unknown. The pandemic is very real. Anonymity is extremely important, right? People that live with HIV, people that are suspected of HIV, they have a lot of shame. And I would say even with COVID, if you remember at the beginning, oh my God, my throat hurts. What if I have COVID? I cannot go on. There's lots of shame, which is why we shouldn't disclose our personal information. We should protect it. And so the government of Canada decided that by the year of, I have to make sure this is accurate, but you can read it, yeah, by 2030, they would like to be able to eradicate this pandemic. Now, how do you eradicate a pandemic and make it a priority? And I can send you guys the demo to anybody that's interested, right? So how do you eradicate a pandemic? You, first of all, have to know the status of people. So this project, which is Canada-wide, allows for people to go through a test. Remember the COVID test? There's also an HIV test. And this is a self-test. It's a self-test that you prick your finger, you take a blood, and within 1 minute, you know your status. And you're able to verify the status with different labs, with different centers that they've put all around Canada. And in the app, it provides the proof that this person has a certain status. Now, if, for example, somebody is invalid, or if they're positive, they're connected to the telemedicine, to a doctor, to a professional, they're able to get help. If they're negative, there are different treatments that people that are more exposed to the virus would like to do. There's PrEP, I don't know if you guys know PrEP, right? But the initiative here is to allow someone anonymously, so we do not grab any personal information. The only thing that we verify, what's important for the government is what's your year of birth, which area are you from in Canada, because they're targeting different areas, right? And then they're answered different survey questions, and the results actually are not even stored on the device. The only thing that's stored on the device is an anonymized SSI number. And with that number, the person can claim a test. They can take the test and provide anonymously the result, and anonymously get connected to care, whether it's PrEP, whether it's an advice, whether it's a doctor. And with that, I really, really hope there will be this initiative to eradicate this pandemic and to be able to get anybody to care. For anybody should know their status, whether it's HIV, whether it's COVID, whether it's other types of diseases. And I think it's a very good use case. And that's it.
That's great. Now I would like to ask to the attendees whether they have any question directly to Galia Wessler. I will give them a few minutes. They can write to us. And Galia, I really personally, and I, on behalf of the Blockchain Academy of Aydın University, we really appreciated your talk. Mostly, I know you are a very busy person, and for your time. And as the power of being the chairman of advisory council of Blockchain Academy Aydın University, I would like to also be very happy to invite you as one of the member of the advisory committee, if you would like to be.
Thank you.
And, our chairman of the board, Professor Dr. Mustafa Aydın, is a very visionary person, and he is the chairman of Euro-Asian universities, and we are gathering every year for almost with a very high participation program in Istanbul. I would like to advise him, in a sense, to invite you to be one of the speakers. We know you are very experienced TEDx speaker, so we will appreciate it. We would like to keep our relation with the university and you in more connected way. I would like also to thank to the director of Blockchain Academy, Adem Özyavaş, and vice director Mustafa Takaoğlu for initializing this webinar. Thank you very much for your time. And really, you know, Turkish people are very hospitable. We like hospitality, so you can come anytime. We will be your host in Turkey whenever you want. It should be not a seminar.
Thank you, thank you. I would love to. I've been to Istanbul, and I cannot wait to come back. Okay.
I hope pandemic will be going out soon, and we will meet personally in Istanbul. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Galia, for your time. Thank you very much for your knowledge you shared with us. We hope to keep in contact. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.